I have a really hard life. I have a hard life with what I'm doing right now, with dealing with Muslim apologists and criticizing Islam. I really don't want to go back and forth with Muslim apologists, especially about the same topic, with the same people, back and forth. I want to respond to something, move on to the next topic, spend more time otherwise, but I keep getting pulled back. And this time, Farid responds, who is known for not being very great with his comprehension skills, but who also happens to be one of the great Muslim apologists in the online Dawah scene right now. Farid responds, accuses me of being a liar and of deceptively editing my own video so that I don't appear wrong on something that I said about Islam. A completely trivial, idiotic thing. Unfortunately, he makes a big accusation here and sells that while being deceptive or simply stupid himself. In this video, we are talking about my statement that one of the reasons why I left Islam is that I read the Quran and that I came across Quran chapter 18 verse 86, in which it says that the sun sets in a muddy spring. Muslims say that this verse is actually from Dhul Qarnayn's perspective, the character in the verse, upon which I respond in a certain video that I made 2 years ago or more, that this is simply false because there is no implication, no indication in the sentence, in the verse at all, in the wording, that this is merely from his perspective. So arguing that this is certainly from his perspective is simply wrong. On a plain reading, it merely says that Dhul-Qarnayn went to a place where the sun sets. This is a place. When he reached that place, he found the sun setting in a muddy spring, or a spring of dark mud. And he found near that place a people. The place where the sun sets is a location that he reaches. He finds the sun setting in a spring of dark mud, or a muddy spring, and he finds near that place a people. Still, some Muslim apologists come in disregarding all these factors and say that the wording here, finding it, as in found it, indicates that this is only from his perspective, that he only observed it as if the sun sets in a muddy spring. And that, I say again, is simply false. The verse indicates no such thing, and especially the wording contains no such thing. It merely describes Dhul-Qarnayn finding something. And now with that, let's see what Farid said in his video. And even created the fantasy that the sun lands in a muddy spring. The sun, which is far bigger than the earth. Many Muslim apologists of our time try to argue that the Quran verse is misunderstood. Now, Muslim apologists try to explain this by saying, A, this is explained from Dhul-Qarnayn's perspective, or B, he sees it as if it was setting in a muddy spring. But it's clear why they say that. The text doesn't contain any of that. In the text, it is Allah who clearly describes that Dhul-Qarnayn went to the setting place and found the sun setting in a muddy spring.
In any case, I made a video about this in October 2019, around 2.5 years ago, addressing the claim that this is a general truth. 2 days ago, he responded by saying that he never claimed that it was a general truth.
Nothing wrong with that so far, right? You have seen in the video, which he himself showed, that I'm merely responding to the claim that this is certainly from his perspective by saying, sorry, there is nothing in this verse or in the wording which indicates that this is from his perspective. So reading it, you get the impression that this is a description of things that are actually happening. A general truth, an objective reality. I have never said that the wording used here can only exclusively be used for a general truth. That's not at all what I'm claiming. That would be a completely different argument. What I'm saying is that on a plain reading, that's what you understand. And there is no indication of any subjective observation. What the text describes here is that Dhul-Qarnayn comes across something. The same word is used again in the same verse, when it says he found near it a people. Is this as if now he didn't really find those people? But our friend Farid here spends a huge chunk of his refutation video, and he acts like I am making the claim that found it can only mean that this is a general truth, an objective reality, and then tries to refute that, a straw man which he built in his own head. Farid, I'm not the one making the claim that this word is necessarily in reference to something literally happening.
So, hey, if it's not a general truth, then why did you exactly leave Islam?
Very simple, Farid. In this video that you have just seen, the guy, me, never said it is not a general truth. In this video, the guy, me, merely said that I never made the claim that it must necessarily refer to a general truth. I am of the conviction that the Quran describes that the sun actually sets in a muddy spring because of the circumstantial evidence. I would, however, never go ahead and claim that the wording must 100% indicate that a literal setting in a muddy spring is described here. This is merely what I'm taking from the circumstantial evidence, arguing that the wording can only refer to a general truth or can only refer to it as a subjective observation is a false claim. That's what's happening here, Farid. Do you understand it now? Please tell me you understand it now. This is very simple. I have never, ever made the claim that this wording here can exclusively refer to an objective reality, a general truth. I'm merely saying that there is no indication here at all that it doesn't refer to a general truth, an objective reality, that it does definitely refer to a subjective observation. Please, man, please, you're giving me pain and suffering with this stupidity.
If this verse can be about Dhul Qarnayn's perspective, then why were you so bothered by it?
Very simple. It can be, it could be, yes. But seemingly, given the evidence, it is not.
Why did you say that this is utter garbage?
So when the Quran verse here says he found
Because I say that the Quran verse never indicates that it is from his perspective, that nothing in there makes it clear that this is from his perspective, and that arguing that this is certainly from his perspective is simply a claim that is baselessly made by reading your own opinions into the text. Very simple.
And now here comes the good part. Shout out to Detective O. Will, who actually caught this manipulator cutting 1 second from his video in order to refute me. First of all, a quick reminder of what his claim is.
And he acts like I am making the claim that found it can only. Now he is accusing me here of editing and cutting my own video. Mean that this is a general truth, an objective reality, a general truth, a general truth.
So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be playing both clips.
So let's listen again to what I just said in that video. This is a general truth.
A quick reminder of what his claim is.
And he acts like I am making the claim that found it can only mean that this is a general truth, an objective reality. So they are acting as if I am making the claim that found it here can only refer to a general truth, an objective reality, which I don't. Right? This is exactly what's being said here.
So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be playing both clips, the original clip and his quoting of his original clip with the text on the right side with the highlighted words so you can see what was removed from the first clip.
Let's see that.
Many say that the translation is simply not clear and that you need to read it in a context, that the word used for finding it actually describes the situation only from Dhul Qarnayn's perspective, not as a general truth. So when the Quran verse here says he found it setting in a muddy spring, it means that he saw it that way, not that the sun actually sets in a muddy spring. Many say that the translation is simply not clear, that the word used for finding it actually describes the situation only from Dhul Qarnayn's perspective. So when the Quran verse here says he found it setting in a muddy spring, it means that he saw it that way, not that the sun actually sets in a muddy spring.
So now the question is, why did he remove that part where he says not a general truth? Well, that's because his goal in his main video is to prove that it was a general truth. But
false. Completely false. Now let's go back and check what was removed from my video, what I cut out from my original video when I presented this. I cut out this part and that you need to read it in a context. Now, first off, this part, removing it or leaving it there, does nothing, absolutely nothing to the point at all. The second part that I apparently cut out from my own video is not as a general truth. That the word used for finding it actually describes the situation only from dude, at least transcribe the video correctly, man. Serious. Describes the situation only from Dhul-Qarnayn's perspective, not as a general truth. Does removing not as a general truth change anything at all about what's being said here? No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Because I already say here that the word used for finding it actually describes the situation only from Dhul-Qarnayn's perspective. That is the same thing as saying not as a general truth. That is merely a repetition of the thought, which is why I removed that from my quoted video.
So now the question is, why did he remove that part where he says not a general truth? Well,
very simple, because it's repetitive, unnecessary, because I always cut videos shorter to make things more concise.
That's because his goal in his main video is to prove that it was a general truth.
In this context, no, that's not true. The point there was to prove that nothing in this text indicates that this is a subjective observation. You're not getting it.
Now he's hiding that from his audience. He's trying to pretend that he never made that claim.
No, I simply never made that claim.
Now, here's the crazy thing about this whole situation. Just bear with me. The main reason, okay, so one of the main reasons to why you left Islam is because of this. You believed that the sun literally goes down into a murky spring according to Islam. And
yes,
over the past few years, you learned a few things about Islam, and you ultimately learned that you were mistaken about this specific point. Due to this, you said,
Farid, I'm not the one making the claim that this word is necessarily in reference to something literally happening.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not. No, I did not. If you think I did, then I'm sorry. You are extremely stupid. I did not. I could reiterate this 1,000 times. In my original video, I never, not a single time, said that the word or the wording must necessarily refer to a general truth. You are not only reading into your own text, you're also reading into what I'm saying and making a claim that I said something which I never said. I never claimed that the word can only refer to a general truth. I have only said that nothing indicates that it doesn't refer to a general truth, and that nothing in the wording of this verse indicates that this is certainly describing a subjective observation. Clear as that. This doesn't mean I'm manipulating my own words from the past. This means you're not getting it.
You know what you could have done? You could have just said, okay, listen, guys, I made a mistake, and yeah, Islam is still false.
Let's make this very clear, Farid. I believe the Quran describes that the sun actually sets in a muddy spring. I did believe that when I made the original video. I did believe that a few days ago when I published a response video to you, and I still believe that same thing today. I think that Quran chapter 18 verse 86 describes that the sun sets in a spring of mud, and that Dhul-Qarnayn went to the setting place of the sun where he saw that happen. I do believe that, while at the same time not believing that the word in this verse can only mean that this is a general truth, because I believe that the Quran makes such a wrong claim based on the other things that this verse says, and because there is no indication that the issue in question, meaning the setting of the sun, is metaphorical or simply an observation. It could be that the Quran verse does indeed point at a subjective observation, at a metaphor, but there is simply no indication of such a thing. And the claim that this is certainly an objective observation requires evidence, of which there is none. Which is why I am left with the most reasonable explanation that this is describing the sun actually setting in a muddy spring. This is supported with a lot of evidence which I didn't even bring up until this point. Maybe I'm being way too charitable, which is the fact that so many tafsirs, exegesis of this Quran verse in the early times of Islam seemingly agree with the idea that the Quran actually describes the sun setting in a muddy spring. In the most prominent tafsir exegesis of Tabari, the Tafsir al-Tabari, for example, we see that the sun actually sets in a spring of dark mud, or in a muddy spring, or a hot spring. And the discussion there is then if this spring is dark or muddy or hot, not whether this is literal or metaphorical. It is only later in the history of Islam that people adopt the idea that this cannot refer to a literal setting in a muddy spring, because that would be stupid. Because apparently the earth is round and the sun is not in contact with the earth, and it's actually much bigger than that. So I can't even believe that I'm faced with these ridiculous points that people make while thinking that they have actually done something great. A whole discussion about what I said or didn't say, which arose simply from a misinterpretation by Farid of what I actually said, which other Muslims then jumped on. In my response video, I did not only cut out parts of my own original video, I also cut out a lot of parts from Farid's video, just to bring the point across and to make it more concise. But seemingly nobody seems to complain about the fact that I cut out big parts of his video. I'm sorry, I guess the next time that I edit videos and that I cut things to make them more presentable, I should take into consideration that my videos are viewed by a lot of extremely stupid people who will have an issue with me editing things. I'm sorry to say this here. I mean, I don't want to be insulting, but you're stupid. Just kidding. Of course, I won't take that into consideration. That would be, I would be making my own life much harder for the sake of stupidity. Guys, what the hell, man? Stay away from Islam.